Hello everyone and welcome back to another Wizard101 video. Now today, God, this video better be the most poppin' video I've ever made, alright? For the amount of effort I put into it. I have been requested multiple times in my Discord now to make a gear list. Now I've already made one and I thought that video was satisfactory, but I recognized that it wasn't as concise as it could be, and also it wasn't completely updated. And then for a third thing, obviously, it wasn't with my new style of, like, you know, cutting down a little bit of the video, whatever. So I just decided to make a new one. Now, I decided if I'm going to make an ultimate gear guide, I'm going to make an ultimate gear guide. I went all out, and by all out, I mean I've spent the last 5 hours of my life making a spreadsheet with all of the gear on it. Now, this spreadsheet will be linked in the description, so if you ever want to look at it, look through all the gear, find what you want to do, all that, it's there. Now, some things to note about this ultimate gear list. First, there are minimal / no pack / crown gear. The only exception I made to that was Heart Steel at level 5 because it is easily farmable from Prince Gobblestone. That is the only crowns gear in this entire thing. So if you're looking for the crown setup, that is a completely different video. This is for people who purely want to grind it out, purely want to farm gear, no crowns involved. This is designed for more damaging rolls. If you're looking for a life healing set or an ice healing set, an ice resist set, you're not going to get it here. I'm looking for getting the most damage output while also maintaining some other stats, and in the case of the more defensive schools, being balanced. All of the setups at 140 should have over 130 damage. So if you are looking for the ultimate setup for 140 and you want to have a lot of damage, there you go. They all should be over 130, and this isn't including the pet. So obviously the pet will make it higher, and obviously this isn't saying like fire and storm are going to have like 180, whatever. I'm just saying that all of them, the minimum should be 130 if you follow this. Some of them have alternatives, and some of it is not necessarily required. It's just recommendations on how to get there. So I'm going to go over all this. I'm not going to necessarily go too in depth because I don't want this video to be an hour long, but I'm going to go over each of the things. So you can see right here at the bottom, Merle Ambrose is standing here menacingly with a gun, and he's like, "Young wizard, you better follow this gear setup or you're going to be executed." And I'm like, whoa. Calm down, Merle Ambrose, alright? I've had enough to deal with the last 5 hours. I don't need you threatening me. It took me from 2 in the morning to 7 in the morning. After this, I'm going to crash, burn, and fall asleep. I'm going to upload this, upload this, all that kind of stuff. And then I should wake up by the time it comes out to respond to comments. I'm living the life. Anyways, you can see here, easily navigatable tabs at the bottom, and it has all the gear. So how it's set up is I have the school and the roll at the top left. I have hat, robe, boots, wand, a thame, amulet, ring, and deck. And then I have the main levels. You can easily go through this. Sometimes if the image does not load, scroll to a different page and then go back and it should load fine, or just refresh the page. But I've noticed that happens minimally. So let's get into it. Now, the first stage of gear I put on here was Zeus Gear. The reason why I didn't put anything earlier than that is I felt like it wasn't necessary. Any gear before level 30, you either don't need gear. I haven't used gear a lot of times up until level 30. And 2, you can just use Bizarre Gear. Both of those are fine. So if you look into them, I have all of the Zeus Gear listed, the Sky and Hasta, which you'll notice the Sky and Hasta is a very common thing, and Heart Steel, and then for Amulet, Ring, and Deck, you can just go for any Bizarre. There's nothing in particular that's necessarily good, and that's a common thing in this. If I don't think that there's a specific gear you should go for, just go for whatever's the best in the Bizarre. Now, I would like to say Zeus Gear isn't necessarily the prime thing. I'm just going for what is the best for each level and what you should kind of aim for. Some of these aren't required. You can go for lesser alternatives if you want to, but I listed the ultimate thing. So for example, for Zeus Gear, you can go for Senator's Gear. That is a fine alternative, but this is the ultimate best gear set. So you can see the full Fire Zeus set here. Next, you move on to 140, and from that, you have the Barkingham Palace gear, which, yes, these were the highest res images I could find of the Barkingham Palace gear. For some reason, it's really difficult to find, and I actually didn't even manage to find the Balance robe you can see over here. I'll fill that in at some point, but as of right now, I could not find it. The Sky Hassa and the Heart Steel. This is a pretty solid set. Realistically, if you have the Zeus Gear, you do not need to upgrade to the Barkingham Palace gear. And if you don't want to go for Zeus Gear, then you can go for Barkingham Palace. They're both interchangeable. They're almost equivalent. The Barkingham Palace gear is slightly better. It gives like an extra 5 to 10 net damage. This will hold you over for a while, Zeus Gear especially. All of this will hold you over up until level 56. 56 is when things start changing. First off, you get Monstrous, which is a really good enchant, which is really good, by the way. Make sure to get that at level 56. But you also can get the Winter Tusk Crafted Gear, which you can see is a massive jump in stats. Like the last robe gave 12, the one before that gave 13. This one gives 18. It's definitely a big jump. You're still using the Sky and Hasta, and this is an important one for all schools. For Athame, I put the Garnet Bear Claw here because it is the easiest thing to get. It is incredibly easy to craft. You just need to be Grandmaster Crafter, I believe, and then you go to Winter Tusk and craft this. So make sure to snag one of these on your wizard. It's really good. The only better alternative for it would be the Bear Claws of Battle, the Fire Bear Claw Battle, all that stuff. Or sorry, not of Battle. The Fire Bear Claw, the Ice Bear Claw, all of that. The reason why I didn't list those specifically on each of these is because they are very rare and very hard to get in the bazaar and very difficult to farm for. They are dropped extremely rarely for some reason. I don't know why. So I just listed this. This is basically exactly the same. Maybe a net loss of 1 damage for most schools for the Garnet Bear Claw. So that should be fine. Next, you want the Jewel of Feint, and you're going to be using this for a long time. It's so you can feint stack at an early level. If you don't know what that is, look up a video on it. Then you have the Rings of Battle. The Rings of Battle you get at 56, and they are the best rings right up until the Alpha and Omega ring because it gives damage and really good power pip. And then for deck, you can just use Bazaar. Once you reach level 60, this is where things start getting a little bit, you can kind of pick and choose what you want. You have the Zigzag Gear, which is objectively the best gear at the level. You can see you got up to 20 damage in the robe, which is actually incredibly good. There's no good zigzag boots, but you can still use the fire starter boots from Waterworks. Mount Olympus, you're still using Sky and Hasta, still using all of what I showed you for the ring, amulet, and Athame, and the deck. Now, I would recommend here, personally, I would always go for the Waterworks gear just because I am way too lazy to go for House of Scales. But objectively, House of Scales Zigzag Gear is better. So if you want to go for that, make sure to snag that right here. You can see the stat differences here between all of them. It's pretty apparent that definitely the Zigzag Gear is slightly better. Like it has the 2 extra, like an extra 2 damage or so. If you're min-maxing your stats, you're going to want to go for that. But personally, I don't find it to be too important. Now, you're going to be using that for a long time from level 60 to 90, that gear. And once you're level 90, you really are only going to be upgrading 2 things, and that is the Blade of Fell Titan Alpha and Omega Ring, replacing your Garnet Bear Claw and Ruby Ring of Battle. These are incredibly good. Technically, you don't need to get the Blade of Fell Titan until later, but I would definitely recommend getting it because it is the most massive damage upgrade you're going to get. You're going to get an extra like 9 to 10 damage from most of these things, which is really, really good. You can farm it from Tartarus and Cronus. I tried to make this guide, as you can see, as easy to read, as easy to follow as possible. Now, for level 100, there's some other alternatives. I put the Crocopatra Fez, and I did this for Storm as well, I believe. Yeah, I put it for Storm as well. Specifically, Fire and Storm are really the only ones that are going to need it. The only reason why I would put it there is because it gives that extra damage. I think it actually might give 1 extra resist as well, so if you want to go for resist, you can. Realistically, this is very min-maxy. You can just get the Shadow of Malice, or the Malastare hat, and it will be almost exactly the same. So feel free to get that. And then you want to get the Malastare's Robe. For almost every school, this is going to be the robe you use until 140. So keep that in mind. Then you want to get the Malastare boots, really good boots. Obviously, you might want to go for a different boot if you have crowns, but this is the best non-crown boots in the game. Still using the Sky and Hasta. For schools such as, I'm going to show you later specifically what schools are different, but for schools such as Fire, Storm, and maybe Myth or Death, you're going to want to be using the Morgantha theme rather than the Darkmoor theme because it gives that 1 extra damage. But realistically, the Darkmoor theme is almost just as good, and honestly, it might be a bit better for most people because of that 2 extra accuracy and then 2 extra pip chance. Morgantha's Dark Charm is a really good one as well from the Shadow Palace. An alternative to that is Shane Von Shane's amulet, which I would like to say is really good, but it is you're probably not going to be using it for more than 30 levels, so it might not be worth it to farm. Next, your option is the Alpha and Omega ring or the Aphrodite ring. The Aphrodite ring is objectively the best ring, and for some schools, such as Ice, Balance, Life, you're actually really going to want to get the Aphrodite ring because it's probably going to be the best ring throughout the entire game for you. You're not going to actually switch those more damaging rings later on, but for schools such as basically for the other 4 schools, you're not going to even really need this. I would recommend just going for the Alpha and Omega ring first, and then maybe this if you want the extra stat boost. You can see it gives some good power pip and some extra damage, so it's pretty good to know. Also, it has a square jewel, which is really good. Again, deck, you can start using decks you get from Chrysalis, but personally, I don't actually have a recommendation. Next, you're going to move up to 130, and this is where things start getting real damaging, and you're going to be starting to use gear sets. This is, in my opinion, the best setup in the game you can go for, and by my opinion, I mean it is objectively the best you can go for, and that is Dragoon hat, you have the Balusters Robe, you have the Dragoon boots. The staff, I just put the legendary staff here, but you can go for Revered. Revered is much more difficult, though, for not a lot more extra stats. At 130, this is probably going to be the best, and you can get it at 115, so keep that in mind. But at 140, the best staff is going to actually be the Caramel Wand, so keep that in mind. If you want to just skip going for this wand, you can. But it is a massive boost from the Skyrim Hasta. Then you want to get the Dragoon Fiery Charm. What the Dragoon hat, boots, and charm will do is it will give you that set bonus, that extra damage. For schools such as Fire and Storm, this is really important. It gives you 7 damage around that for both, and it will be really good. And then this is when you can actually get like a unique deck, and you can get the Paradox deck, which is probably the best in the game at the moment. There might be a little bit better decks, but I think that this is the easiest to get, and it's just objectively good enough that you'll never need another deck. Finally, at 140, again, you're still keeping the Balusters Robe because of that amazing stats it gives. Like, it gives really good damage, really good resist, really good accuracy, and it's just all around, like, the best robe in the game for attack schools. So I would recommend keeping that. This is when you switch to the Caramel Wand, either farm from Heidi or the Hour and Paradox. Obviously, I listed all of the places you can farm them at the bottom. And you can check this at any time. And then this is when you're going to switch to the Executive Rings for that, which are the most damaging rings in the game. So that is that. That's my list. Let's go over some of the other schools because I thought that obviously some schools have some differences, but I'm not going to go as in depth as I just did. So, for example, for Ice, Life, and Balance, I didn't put the Zigzag Gear. And I don't think I put the Zigzag Gear for anyone but Storm and Fire because it's not really necessary at all. Like, Storm and Fire are only really good for the crit and the extra little damage, but it's not even that important for those two as a whole. So I definitely just didn't bother putting it for the rest. And a lot of them, you know, you're going to want that resist, that heavy resist on the Waterworks gear. So there's that. For this, I also, you can see for Ice, Life, and Balance specifically, I threw in here the Corporal Tennyson Brigade armor. The reason for that is it gives more resist, which as these more balanced schools, you're going to be wanting that a bit more. But you can see, you can still go for the Armor of the Cold-Hearted or the Balusters Robe. It'll still be pretty good. It'll still give you that extra accuracy buff. But if you specifically want a little bit extra damage for most of these, excuse me, and a little bit extra resist, definitely go for the Brigade armor. And you can see especially this is like prevalent in Balance, where it is, you know, I mean, not necessarily, but 19 damage versus 20 damage, 14 versus 15 resist. It's pretty good overall to get this. The reason why I'd say you don't want to do that for the other schools is specifically that accuracy power pip is just really, really good for damaging schools. especially because you want to be able to hit as a damaging school. So I left that in. But otherwise, this was really it for today. Feel free to check out the list in the description. You can use this at any time. Again, I would really appreciate if people used it, considering this took me a very, very long time to do. I know that balance is a little bit unfinished. Not a little bit, but it's missing 2 of the items. It's missing the Royal Uniform of Accord and the Executive Ring. Oh, wait, no, I just removed the Executive Ring because it's honestly not even worth it, which is true. Oh, wait, no, sorry, it's the Death that doesn't have the Executive Ring. I'll add this at some point when I can find a good image of this, but otherwise, this is it. And I added where you can farm it and who drops it. So, thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope this is what you wanted. Please drop a like, hit the sub button. I would really appreciate it after all the effort I went into for this. If you want to support me financially, you can support me on Patreon, which would be really cool. You can get your name in the description or listed at the end of the video if you pay, I think it's like 20 bucks a month. I'll start listing your name at the end of the video, but otherwise, yeah, that's it. So thank you all for watching. I really hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next video. Adios.